Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Better Reading Book Club. You might notice, for those of you that have been joining us for several months now, that we have actually got a live audience tonight. So we're not just going Better Reading live straight to you down the barrel, but we've actually got a live audience of people who have promised to behave themselves. Now, all of them are drinking champagne, and we can hold our glasses up if you've got one, or our cups. We are celebrating today. We're not just celebrating book club with a live audience going live down the barrel, but we're celebrating 100,000 likes on Facebook. Thank you. And thank you to you. Thank you so much to the Better Reading community. I've got to tell you, I really have appreciated your participation. We've been going for almost 2 years now, and it has been those of you online who participate, make comments and keep us going. And I am telling you, I read every single comment every single night. It just goes to show I have no life. But anyway.
So you have a life of books.
I do have a life of books. So welcome to Better Reading Book Club. Now I'm also going to tell you that this is a world first. There is no one, not in any category, books, alcohol or otherwise, that has organised Better Reading or has organised Facebook Live with a live audience. Now, I've got to tell you, I'd like to say that I organised all of this myself, but I didn't. I do want to thank my team tonight because it takes a lot of people to make this happen. And I particularly want to thank Liz Dernan. I want to thank Beth Neville, and I want to thank Gemma Rowe. They're the people that make this business tick. But I also want to thank Todd Decker and Deborah Bella, who have put this all together for us, and everybody else who has helped tonight. Those who've made the cake, bought the bickies and everything else, and those of you who have attended tonight. So thank you very much. Okay, so thank you. So we have got a fabulous lineup, as we do. I have Christine Fairbrother here on my left. Christine works for the publisher, Hachette Australia, who has published our book club book. Christine works in marketing, and she's also Irish. So I think it's very appropriate that Christine is here with us tonight. So thank you. And then I have Caroline Overington over here on my right. I'm worried that Caroline's not going to behave herself tonight.
Oh, you're the one who wants to do spoilers.
I am going to do spoilers. Caroline is a journalist. She works for The Australian, but she's also a writer. She's a writer of non-fiction and fiction, and she has, with her most recent book. There it is.
I didn't have this, you had it.
And it's called The One That Got Away. It's in our top 100. Actually, I think you've been in our top 100 a couple of times, but this is Caroline's most recent book. It was released a few months back.
Yep, in May.
In May. It went straight to the bestseller list, and apparently it's, number 1 on iTunes or something?
Today.
Today.
Yeah.
So if you want to download the ebook, there it is. Go on, you can talk now.
No, I just feel like we should warn them that you're going to do spoilers and I'm not.
So we are going to talk about the book. The book is Holding by Graham Norton. Now, yes, it is the Graham Norton. It's Graham Norton from the Graham Norton Show. It's Graham Norton, television presenter, comedian. How else would you describe him? Writer?
He's a talk show host, really, isn't he?
He was on Father Ted.
Yeah.
That's where he started out.
Hugely popular.
Radio, yeah.
Radio.
So he's a well-known identity, and I know a lot of you know him and like him. I know that some of you didn't like him because they told me so via comments. However, we are talking about Holden. There will be spoilers because I do want to talk about the ending. So if you want to know what happens at the end, probably you should tune out a little bit later. But meanwhile,
I'll go like this, la 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 la.
But meanwhile, we're taking questions and comments. We're taking them from the live audience, and we're taking them from you at home. So sit back, make yourself coffee, tea, or get yourself a champagne to celebrate 100,000 likes of Better Reading, and share your comments and questions with us. Okay, any questions before we get started? All right? Okay, lovely. So I'm going to start with you, Christine. Firstly, do you want to give us a little synopsis about the book? What's it about?
Well, you meet PJ, who is a sergeant in a little town called Doneen in County Cork, which is a real place, actually. We just discovered before we went on air. It's not fictional, but Ballythorn, which is another town in this little book, is fictional. So there you go. But it's, oh gosh, how do you describe it? It's
meant to be a murder mystery, but it's more than that.
It's definitely a mystery.
Yeah.
I would say that it doesn't fall into the category of thriller. It's definitely not a thriller because you're not sort of on the edge of your seat. The pace is really interesting. It's one of those books where you just keep turning the pages to try to figure out what is going to happen next, but not in a kind of, nervous way. It's not violent.
No.
There's no bloodshed. There's no horror in it, but you're constantly thinking what is going to happen. And just on the subject of Graham Norton, I think it's really interesting that he has written a book that is not funny. Like, it's not.
But it is funny.
But it's not meant to. Like, he's a comedian, right?
And it's not full of gags.
It's not.
No.
You would expect it to be really sort of light and fluffy and hilarious, and you're lying in bed and you're kind of laughing out loud. But you're not. I mean, the opening page, I think, is very funny when he describes PJ, who's the main character, the main police officer, who's really corpulent. And you get straight away this image of a really, not quite cheerful, but of a big guy who's come to terms with the fact that he's a really big guy. And that's kind of funny. But I wouldn't say it's a comedy.
No. But it has a lovely turn of phrase.
It does.
Yeah, just through it, there's just little bits that make you laugh out loud.
I'm just going to interrupt, and I'm going to read. This is from the Irish Times. It's a book review by a journalist called John Boyne. And he said, "Look, I'll be honest and say that I didn't think it was going to be very good. I was completely and utterly wrong. But do you know, I had that expectation too, because I saw Christine a couple of months ago and she was pitching the book to us, not as a book club book, but as a book to actually talk about and review. And I'm just like, really? Graham Norton? So I think I had that expectation too. And when I picked it up and I read it, it absolutely quashed that. That he can write.
He can write.
If you're watching Graham, you can write. And it's not because I thought, oh, okay, well, so this is going to be a series of whodunit. It's not that at all, is it? No. It's we actually get into these people's lives and we interact with them at a level of their own and find out who they are. And for the longest time, I didn't like Brid. I only started liking her at the end. I don't know if anybody else felt like that.
Yeah, because she was a bit hopeless, wasn't she?
She was too hopeless.
She wouldn't extract herself. She's so miserable, but she wouldn't extract herself.
She's in an unhappy marriage, yeah.
And she wouldn't kind of push her way out of it. She sort of accepted the fact that her husband didn't really love her.
Yeah, and she wasn't going to do anything about that. But I was fascinated with the three sisters from the very beginning. It reminded me, the three sisters, I don't know if anybody's read, I think her name is Kate Atkinson, Case Histories. Has anybody read that book?
Yes.
Have you read that? It reminded me of that in some way, and I bet you Graham has read it. I bet you have, Graham, because there is a little bit of influence, I think, with that. But it is then the mystery, or the murder mystery, is uncovering, but we learn about these relationships, and they really are quite beautiful. I was moved to my core. Of course, I shed a tear. Did anyone else shed a tear at some point?
Well, I'm not doing spoilers, but I did not find the ending 100% believable, I would have to say.
No.
There's one particular scene at the end.
What, the driving away? The driving
No, when
in the car.
that one.
Okay,
where
right,
I mean, did you believe that?
Look, I didn't, and I thought, but it gave the book a bit of speed. What I hadn't read, I was reading it and I missed the epilogue at the end. And
which
so
is lovely.
Yeah, but I'd missed it completely. So I was speaking to Beth in our team and I said, I don't know, I really like a happy ending, and he didn't give me a happy ending, and I really wanted him to have a happy life at the end of it. I mean, I absolutely love happy endings. And she said, you missed the epilogue. I was like, what? And I had to go back and open the book and read the last page. And then I got my happy ending because I really needed a happy ending.
I wonder whether the publisher asked him to add that. Because it's true, actually, readers do like a happy ending. Readers generally do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the publisher will say, and I think that even happened in Great Expectations, right? That they went back and they said, does he really have to end up alone? Can't he? And so I wondered whether maybe they asked him to do that.
I don't know.
It is a tack on, isn't it? It's just
It's like suddenly, it sort of sticks on the end.
We're talking about Great Expectations and Holding by Graham Norton. There you go.
Same,
That's
same,
a big leap. Okay, you're with Cheryl Arkle, where this is Better Reading Book Club. I'm with Christine Fairbrother, Caroline Overington. We've got a live audience here tonight. If you've got any questions or comments, please feed them through to via Facebook comments. But meanwhile, I'll take some questions from the audience. Okay. Hello. You got a question for us? Oh, okay. We'll start
Hi,
with you.
Cheryl and the panel. I was about to say, what book does this remind you of?
What does it?
Can I throw a movie into the mix?
Yeah, sure.
Have you seen The Guard? It is an Irish movie, I have to say, but
I haven't seen it.
It's set in Galway, but that's what it reminded me of. Yeah.
It's on the point that he's the guard. Can I just say that confused me? Because when the book opens, it describes him as being a guard, and he's waiting at so he's a guard that's sort of stationed at the start of this development where people are rebuilding and turning over the soil, which is where they will discover the body. And I assumed he was a security guard, and I couldn't work out why he was getting so involved in this investigation. And it was only when you just said, so that's what they call a police officer. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't get that.
Do you know, I worked that out very quickly, Caroline. I worked that out like within. Yeah. I don't know what happened to you there.
But then why did he have to have the other police officer come and help? It's just
because
like
he was like a detective. You've got a policeman and a detective. You know how there's
so
grades
just somebody
police.
more senior.
So I felt like the guard was a bit like just a cop on the street. I don't know what you call them here, but you know,
like a patrol.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the detectives were the ones that came in from out of town. Do you know what I really liked about this book is that there wasn't that rivalry. I thought, oh, here we go. They're going to get the guy from the next town. He's going to think they're more senior. It's like watching every cop show.
Yes.
But no, that didn't happen. Nothing predictable happened in this book.
Oh, that's right. Because the second police officer, when his marriage breaks down, very early, that's not a spoiler, his marriage breaks down, and he just doesn't care. So you think to yourself, okay, so he's going to have a major moment now because his wife has left and taken the kids. But he sits down in front of the TV and he says, my wife is gone and my kids are gone, and actually I don't care. I don't feel sad about it. I don't feel sad. I never really, it didn't suit me having crying kids in the house anyway. I'm much happier without them. And on the book goes. And you think, well, that was a shock.
Done.
That's a shock.
I think we've got a question.
I just want to say that it's the sort of book that I would immediately buy, and this particular one is so green.
Do you like the cover?
It's lovely, yes. I've licked my way through the book like
well, I've got to tell you,
Swedish pear gelato.
It really is. It really, I think that the cover is very luscious.
Yes.
And you know, for the longest time, we were looking at the UK cover, which I didn't like. So there's often a UK cover or a US cover. And then when this came in, when the actual book came in, I thought, that's much better. I really love this cover. It is really good.
And the title, Holding, because it could refer to 10 things in the book. But holding on to memories, holding on to lost loves, holding on to a child, the idea of a child, the loss of a child.
When we got it through, we were like, what is that?
I thought it was
It makes sense
so
afterwards.
many levels.
It does make sense once you've read it.
And PJ too is holding on, like he's holding on to his sense of security in his isolation, like he's refusing to love anyone, refusing to get involved. I mean, I thought that
Mrs. Meany.
And Mrs. Meany, oh my goodness, she's holding on to all that sorrow.
So it's a guy called Tom who dies, and we don't meet Tom. Tom's well dead by the time we start. We're reading the book, and Tom has had a relationship with Brid and one of the Spinnister sisters, with Evelyn. And we get to we find out about Tom through those two characters, don't we? But we do find out that Tom has a mother, and anyway, I won't get into it because I will cry. I will cry.
But also the idea. So Tom is an attractive guy in the town.
Yeah.
And Tom's had relationships with two attractive women in the town.
I think Tom was a player.
But the idea that he because he's just walked away from the village, right? He's just gone away from the village. They don't know that it's him in the ground for 20 years. That troubled me. I mean, can someone who's going out with two different women, it's a small town, everybody knows everybody's business, can they really just walk away and nobody make any inquiries as to what?
For me, that's quite believable because you go to the big smoke and nobody ever hears about you again, and you don't want to go back and I mean, you know, once you leave your town,
You
don't-
thought that was okay? Because I thought,
Yeah, I
oh,
thought
come
that
on.
was
How
why
many
don't they-
people? How many school friends do you connected with?
I'm on Facebook.
Yeah. PJ wasn't on Facebook. We had another question.
They don't have much service in the village. I noticed that.
No,
They don't
that
have
was mentioned very clearly.
That's mentioned very quickly because there's a few moments when you think, well, why wouldn't they just call? Oh, because there's not a lot of service.
There's not a lot of service.
So I have a question about the cover. You mentioned a UK cover, a US,
cover.
Why do the covers vary? And sometimes even the titles of a book can vary.
They can.
Depending on where it's published. That's
Okay, I
something
think we'll
always
go over
wondered.
to the publisher for that answer.
Okay, I was hoping you wouldn't. It all depends on the market, and so some covers that work in the UK don't work here, and we've proven that time and time again. And then sometimes it could be that it's a different publisher, and they have a different idea for what that book is. And then when it is that all markets like the same thing, that's really powerful, but it's very rare.
It's very
Incredibly
rare.
rare.
So this cover is very fresh. I
Yeah.
agree with Anne Margaret. It
Gelato.
actually makes you want to pick the book up.
Yeah.
So is that a reflection of, you know, Australia's fabulous climate or our outlook? Because I'm just thinking perhaps the UK cover maybe
It's
very
dark and
grey
bleak, actually.
Is it
yeah,
really?
It is.
Oh,
It's
okay.
purple. It's a dark purple. I had a look at it this
So it's
morning.
certainly not gelato.
Yeah, it's certainly not.
No.
I felt that the UK cover we presented a very bleak book.
But Ireland is a bit bleak. It is.
Do you think? Maybe she wasn't bleak.
No, but
she-
that's
she
a very
was
different
Irish.
type of book. But
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
The Irish would accept a bleaker cover.
Cover.
they wouldn't
Then
accept
we
this 'cause
might.
this is very rare.
These colours are very female.
Yeah, they are.
They're like when you've got these gelato covers like this, that's appealing to a female audience. They've done that deliberately to make it that colour. What's interesting is I think Australia actually does better covers than anyone else in the world. And I think the best
I'd have to
example of
agree with
that
that,
is
yeah.
Elena Ferrante's
Yeah.
books.
Okay, yeah.
The covers for the Australian books were gorgeous. The covers for the overseas books were a bit weird. And I think even they would admit that.
Yeah, I
We
think they
did a
might.
better job.
Yeah, okay. All right, now I'm going to read, again, I'm going to refer back to Graham and how everybody expected him not to write a good book, which must be terrible pressure, but anyway. This is from The Guardian, Holding by Graham Norton. He doesn't have the usual comedian novelist urge to pepper every page with gags, which I thought was absolutely so, because I can't stand that. And it said I've lost it. He doesn't have that, and it's a it's a good book, well written, with a fabulous sense of place. And again, I thought,
And very sweet.
and very sweet. And I thought the sense of place originally, I thought there wasn't enough detail to get a sense of that. But do you know, I think I got, because he doesn't really dwell on the location and the environment a lot. I don't know if you notice that. He doesn't talk about the sweeping hills and whatever it is that makes up the beauty of a small town. It's made up by the people. And I thought that was
There's a bit of
unusual.
rain. There's a little bit of rain.
Rain, okay.
You get Ireland.
another
You get that. But
Okay,
you know,
we're
that's
just going to take a question. Can you just hold it off for a minute? Okay, where have we got the question? Over the
I'll
back.
actually ask Christine. In terms of marketing a book with a well-known author from another field, how do you get past that and get reviewers
a lot
to
of
actually
reading
engage?
copies. A lot of reading copies. You kind of press it into people's hands and go, read it. You've got to read it.
Yeah.
That's the best way.
So you're trying to rely as much on word of mouth as you published reviews sort of thing.
Absolutely. And using the gravitas of, The Guardian, the Courier Mail, all of those.
The Irish Times.
Yeah, the Irish Times.
Which I thought was very appropriate for a book.
And it's
set
won
in
an
Ireland.
award in Ireland, actually. A really big one as
Yeah,
well.
it did actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to read. We've got here some reader comments that have come through. Debbie, I just had to get over hearing Graham's voice as I was reading. Lizzie agrees, saying, I really enjoyed it once I got past reading it in his voice. Didn't take long to get engrossed and forget it though. I didn't have that problem. I enjoyed it right from the beginning. Did you have that? Did you hear Graham Norton?
I didn't really hear Graham Norton's voice in it at all. I thought about him a little bit when I first picked it up. I thought about him as the character I know. And what was interesting was, I guess he can be quite nasty is not the word, acerbic, a little bit, like he can be a little sharp in his comedy. Yeah. And I guess I was waiting for that sense to come through, and it just never came. The book, all of the main characters are female, besides PJ, the detective. and he is really gentle in his handling of them. He's really empathetic on subjects like the loneliness of people and the sense of loss in women. He really gets women, and I don't get that.
Me too.
Yeah, and I don't get that from him
from
his TV show.
Yeah.
That he would be so empathetic and so compassionate about.
But I think he was compassionate about all of them, particularly PJ too. And PJ, it was he was being bullied, I guess, for being overweight. But it was whether Graham had been bullied for something in his life. I think that came across.
He really did, yeah.
Yeah, it really did come across. And I think, I was astounded at how deep he went into the female characters, but never talking about appearance, which I quite enjoyed.
For once.
Yeah, for once.
But he got the female voice so well.
He did.
He really did.
He really did.
Just nailed it.
Have we got any more questions? Anyone from who's read it? No?
We have to take our Facebook one.
Well, we have to take our Facebook audience. If you've got any questions or comments, please feed them through. Beth.
Susan Joy asks, how would you categorise this book?
Well, I would say it's, I'm going to have a go. I would say it's commercial fiction. I would say it's very easy to read. I would say it's a book that makes you happy, even though it's sad in parts.
Do you think it's women's fiction? Would you go that far? No, you don't think so? You think men would enjoy it?
I do actually, because it's simply because of the little lines of humour through it. They're really quite fresh
and there's a cop and there's a murder, so they tend to fall into the.
But I wouldn't classify it as crime.
No, it's really interesting, isn't it?
It's a mystery. It's a whodunit.
It is a whodunit.
It is a whodunit.
In a non-whodunit kind of way.
Yeah.
It is really, I've got to say, it is, it's kind of a standalone book, and I don't think that you would. I mean, as I said earlier, when I was reading it, the only person I could think of was Kate Atkinson, Case Histories, only just because of some of the characters, and that's very kind of, it's not a close comparison. But I've got to say, I would challenge anyone to read it and not enjoy it, really.
Oh, I agree.
It's really enjoyable. Do yourself a favour, if you haven't read it, you've really got to read it. No, you're a hard reader. I was worried about what you were going to think.
No, I really did enjoy it. And it was one of those ones, as I say, was because you kind of think, I know what this is going to be, someone's vanity project. Someone's just decided, I could write a novel, the way famous people sometimes do. But it's not. It's really good.
And I think everybody expected it not to be good.
Yeah.
Well, clearly.
And I think actually that publicity that you're getting, there's a lot of reviews that are currently appearing where people say, this is surprisingly good. If you are thinking that this is just someone's, bit of a joke, don't. It's really good. It's going to be amazing for the sales because people who maybe are thinking the same way as I was thinking, give it a go on the basis of reviews saying it's worth it.
Okay, so how do you feel when a book comes out? Like, as a writer, I've got to say, people often talk about book reviews and criticism and everything else, but I always feel that as a reviewer or as a recommender of books, I always think about the work that's gone behind the project before I start to criticise a book. And when I read something, my opinion about it is always very, very considered, unless I think it's a whole lot of shite before I start. But anyway, but usually if I'm getting through a book and it's taken me along the journey, then I think it's got merit. As a writer, how do you feel? Seriously, like you're putting out what we call short form, I guess, with writing as a journalist, but you're writing long form. It's a lot harder, it pays a lot less, and the expectation, I think, is gigantic. How do you feel?
You mean about bad reviews?
About anything. Like the minute you put your baby out into the market, how does that feel?
Well, I'd say two things. The first thing is I think what you do with Better Reading is really unique because you are not in the business of reviewing books to tell people what not to read. No. Your business is all about what to read next. What will I enjoy? What can I pick up and like? Which is a hugely valuable service for people, I think, because a lot of reviewing that you see is people who are just smashing a book for no particular. I don't see the value in reading a review that says, well, this book is a bit of rubbish, don't really bother with it. Why? So then review something you do like. Because people are interested. When I am out looking for a book, I want to hear, what did you read? What did you like? What are you reading? What are you guys reading? What can I read? Because that's what reading's about. But when I get a bad review, I read it aloud to myself in a funny voice. It really helps. So I pick it up and I say, don't bother with this rubbish. It's the worst thing I've read all year. And then I just don't worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because everybody will have their opinion. Not everybody is going to like your book, and that's life.
It is life, and it's very subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
We've got a question from...
Yeah, Gora asks, is it a book that may have a sequel?
Definitely.
I think
Do you
it
think?
could.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the characters are broad enough
Yeah.
to have a few
Well,
more
I think
skeletons in the
I think something else could happen in town.
PJ's life.
Yeah, in
or,
PJ's
or,
life.
or in
yeah.
Dunedin.
Yeah,
And also, he's like a good detective, right? Well, he's not a detective; he's a god. But he's a good character in that when you're writing fiction, you need a guy who's going to lead you through the next story. So he could come across a new mystery.
Yeah.
He could come across a new body. He could come across, anything could happen to him. He's a good vehicle for writing the next story. I think she's less so.
Yes,
because
definitely. I think the women, the characters would have to change, but he would be.
But he's
central.
a good one. So that's what
Although
Lee
I'd
Child
like the girls
did with
to
Jack.
meet somebody.
With Jack
I'd like
Reacher.
the sisters to meet someone in the next book. So, Graham, if you're watching, I really would like them to meet
I
someone.
think they're just going to be eternally miserable.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
I
No,
do.
that makes me
Well,
sad.
they've been set up.
Okay,
for
we've
misery.
got another question coming through from Facebook.
Bianca wants to know what the panel would rate this book out of 5.
10.
She's It's at least a 4.
I would definitely say a 4.
What do you drop it for?
4 or 4 and a half.
Because I didn't buy the. I mean, there's that final
car
scene,
scene.
which you
Okay.
admit yourself.
Yes.
Given
but it
the
didn't.
size of the man in question, what he is said
He
to be
survived.
able to do in that final scene is unlikely.
Yeah.
I just think she had a reason to go under, but does he? I just thought, no, it didn't work
You
for
didn't
me.
buy that.
But on the other hand, I don't like to be critical because I also think something has to happen. I mean, you have to resolve it.
And you have to have a car chase, don't
Right.
you? Yeah.
And sometimes life can be
Throw
even
that in.
weirder.
Yeah.
Some things happen in life that if you put in books, no one would ever believe.
But definitely a 4 out of 5 from me. That's what I'd say. You'd say a 10 out of 5.
Oh, look, 5 full marks.
5 full
I just
marks.
enjoyed it so much. I mean,
I
yes,
did,
there
I did.
was a couple of little things that were not 100%, but
No, I loved it. I
100%
absolutely loved
enjoyed.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100% easy read, lovely. Now, do we have any more questions or comments from the live audience? Oh, they're being very quiet and very well. Oh, we do. We have one.
Sorry, I'll just wait.
Yeah, that's okay. Wait for the mic.
Do you think that it will transfer nicely to a television show? Because I felt, in fact, I was describing it to a friend on the way here, and I said, I feel when I'm reading it as though I'm watching one of those BBC shows
Yes.
on a Saturday night, in a good way.
And it has to be BBC,
And
I
the
think.
characters were very beautifully drawn
RTE.
for that reason. And so I wonder if perhaps, I'm curious to know whether you think it has enough for a film, or whether it would hold up for a series, a television series.
Oh, I definitely
Definitely.
definitely a television series. I
What
would
was
say
the
that.
name of that one that was set in the small village where the boy's body was found at the bottom of the cliff? Do you remember that? Broadchurch. Did it have that kind of feel to you,
I
like a
haven't seen
Broadchurch
Broadchurch,
kind of
yeah.
feel?
It's probably not as murder mystery.
It was,
enough.
but kind of bleak and windswept
Yeah.
and small town, and a lot of secrets, a lot of affairs going on that that you're not meant to know about. That kind of thing. It had that feel, didn't it? That sort of lovely bleak
Who's going
feel.
to play PJ? I've got to think about that. We'll take another question.
We need Robbie Coltrane back.
Okay.
He would have. I think he's.
Oh, is he dead?
Did he
Okay.
die?
I just wanted to say that Graham did study English and French
Ah.
in
There
the
you go.
1980s. He didn't complete his studies and then he went on to speech and drama, but he did study English for 2
Oh,
years.
that's fabulous
there
to
you
know.
go.
There you
Well,
go.
That's why
It
he can
shows.
compose a good book. It does show. It
It
absolutely shows. Okay, so no more questions or comments from the audience? No? Any questions for these guys? Oh, we do. We have one more.
Just one question for Caroline. I have a daughter who is very keen on writing and filmmaking and drama, and I always wonder for someone successful like yourself, what advice should we give an up-and-coming writer with regards
Is she still in school?
She's at last year uni.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Look, I think it's just the most divine career, and I think it's wonderful also that you're encouraging her, because there's a lot of negativity at the moment about writing and writers and journalism and so on, and playwriting and screenwriting. You know, it's so difficult to get your work made. It's so difficult to get your work published. A lot of newspapers are closing down.
It doesn't pay.
It doesn't pay that, but you know what? You are on a creative journey and working on your craft day in, day out, trying to get better is a reward in and of itself. And I think we forget that sometimes. We kind of look at, unless you're the most successful actress with all of the Oscars, and unless you've had your movie made, then somehow what you're doing is not legitimate. And I don't believe that. I believe that you are put on this earth to shine in your individual way. And that it can't logically be for everyone superstardom. But you are on a bound to get in there and work on your craft and get better and keep practicing and shine your light in your own particular and individual way. So I would encourage her to just keep going and to judge success on her own terms. And it may not be on the world's terms, but they're going to be on her own terms.
Well, it's the power of storytelling, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
It's really.
It's wonderful.
Storytelling.
Where would we be without them?
Who was it? Was it Pullman? What's that children's author's name? Philip Pullman, who said that there's only 3 things that sustain humans. It's food, clothing and story. And I think that is so true. And these are the storytellers. Graham Norton is one of the storytellers. And regardless of how you tell that story, whether it's in the written word, whether it's through film, however you tell it, it is really important, I think, for society to hear stories. Yeah, it's one of my favourite things.
Never too old.
Never too young, never too old.
No.
Absolutely. I mean, I love being read to out loud as well. That's another.
Who reads to you? Tell us your story.
Audiobooks.
Okay, we've got another comment.
We have a question about some of the sadder stuff in this book. Ivana says her most heartbreaking moment was when PJ observed that Mrs. Meany believed all her bad luck stemmed from her rape. Do you believe women think like this today?
So now that nearly makes me cry, because Mrs. Meany's life was a total sacrifice, wasn't it? Mrs. Meany was raped, fell pregnant, and had to give up her child to her neighbour because she was very young and she couldn't raise it, and she was a single mother. But she was in that terrible predicament where she saw her child being raised by other parents. I mean, the heartache. And she had to, sit on the side, so to speak, and live her life parallel to her son's life. I think there were themes of no consequences, I think, at the time, like, that this guy that raped her got away with it.
But
did
also,
you think
how
that?
good was that scene?
I know.
It is so difficult to write a rape scene. I would never in a million years attempt it. It's just the most difficult thing imaginable.
Yeah.
And the build up to it, when she's heading out to this concert to see a young pop star that she's been dying to see for all these years, and she gets overwhelmed by the crowd, and then you are with her. You are on that journey. You are.
He wrote that very, very well.
It's brilliant. How does he understand what it's like to be a teenage girl in the audience of a pop star and become so overwhelmed by the experience that you kind of lose your bearings for a minute? That's a really unique female experience.
She didn't want to put anyone out.
I know. She kept it to herself. But also, do you know what I thought was particularly meaningful and sad? Is that she just went with it because she didn't really know what to do. And the way he wrote it, it wasn't like full violence crime. No, because often rape is not, He just kind of talks her into it, does it, that's the end of it. And it was so perceptive. It was the kind of rape that I remember once reading a figure where they said that something like 1 in 3 women would agree that not all of their sexual encounters have been with consent. Now, if you think about that in the audience, would you agree that there have been times where your sexual encounters have not necessarily involved consent? That's a really common experience of women. But I was gobsmacked by the ability of a male person that I thought of as a quite acerbic comedian to really get what it would be like to
be a woman in that situation, and boy does he get it.
He does get it. He does. I thought that was
Your
particularly
heart is broken for her again and again and again.
And it's yes. Well, I won't spoil that bit. What happens to her child? I'll leave that to you. You read it. Okay. Well, I think that might be it for our conversation. I do want to talk about our next book club book, and that is Crimson Lake by Candice Fox. So next book club is the 22nd of February, Wednesday the 22nd of February.
So long.
I know it is, because we're taking a break. We've got December and January coming up, but we will be back in February. But meanwhile, you can talk to us about any book every single day of the week, so you don't have to wait till then. So this is what we were talking about. We'll be back here with a live audience, so if you want to come back and if you want to join us, please do. This is Candice Fox. She is remarkable. She's Australian. I think this is her third or fourth crime book. She's written a book, is it Beth, with James Patterson? With James Patterson. Never. Yeah, together. She
was on your panel before, wasn't she?
She was on our panel a couple of months ago. But if you haven't read crime, I think you should start here. She is a fantastic writer. Have you read her?
Yep.
Fantastic writer. Her name's Candice Fox. She's young, she's Australian. She's really taking the world by storm, not just Australia. So she'll be here on the panel talking about Crimson Lake. So join us the 22nd of February 2017. Okay, I think that's it from me. I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And I particularly want to thank those joining us at home from via Facebook. 100,000 likes. It's because of you. I can't thank you enough for bringing us to this point where we are, for creating the biggest reading community in this country. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for those that have come tonight. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll stay with us to enjoy some nibbles, some birthday cake and some champagne. And I think that's it from us. Thank you to Christine. Thank you to Caroline.
And cheers to better
reading.